G'day folks, Gary from Platform 1 MRC. Thanks for joining me again for part 2 of this detailing video. As you can see here, I've drawn up a sketch of vertical tank or vertical pump, which is quite similar to what's in the Waller's tank and truck loading kit. So these vertical tanks here. What I'll be using is Evergreen styrene number 231, which is 1132 or 8.7mm styrene tube for the actual tank itself, and some 1.5mm angle for the feet or the legs, which is Evergreen styrene number 291. All the associated piping coming off each side there will be from the Waller's kit. Now, as I mentioned earlier in part 1, you get a hell of a lot of individual pieces from this kit to use. So I'm going to get cutting all this up, capping off the tube with a bit of old scrap styrene, filing it down, adding on all the associated piping. But with the piping, I'm only going to go as far as this lower flange here because I'm unsure how long this horizontal pipe will need to be. On the diagram itself, I've showed this, you could say, an inspection lid on top, and I've drawn it there a little bit smaller, but what I've found is some 7.9mm tube or Evergreen styrene number 230, which is this, and I've cut some small slithers. Now, being a little bit smaller diameter than what we have here, once I cap that off and sit them centrally, I will glue a couple of lids on top of them as well. So they'll be glued to that, trimmed off, then glued on top. So that'll give a better impression, something much more similar to the lids we have on the kit here. What I'll do is go through, trim all these off both, glue the tops on, glue these to the it's a bit of old scrap 010 inch styrene sheet, nothing too heavy, nothing too thick, and piece them all together, put the 4 legs on, and this here will be the flanges. I've cut 4 of these out of some 4mm diameter Evergreen styrene tube, the number being, I've got it here somewhere. Actually, I'll just post it up, and they'll be glued both to the top and the bottom, entry exit. That'll enable me, once they're glued, to actually drill them out to the same diameter as the pipeline that feeds into it, which is about 3.1-3.2mm. So as you can see, that doesn't quite fit. I mean, I could sand the end of these down to make them fit, but I'll once these are attached, I can actually just drill straight into the model itself. All right. Hopefully, the next shot will show us with everything trimmed up, tops on, the caps on the top, and the legs and smaller flanges done. All right, let's carry on. Okay, so here we are with the 2 completed tanks. I'll post up a photo of them so you can see them, so it's a little bit closer. They've turned out alright. Now, what I do have to do is take the 3mm drill bit and eventually drill out these holes here a little bit larger there, and on the back there as well for the fuel lines. Now, to actually get these level, to get them to sit up straight like so, I've used a piece of 3x4mm Evergreen styrene, and they actually sit on top, and then you glue your legs on. So that's how they are there. I'll post up a photo of that too for you. So the next thing to do will be to add all the associated plumbing to the front and the rear. I am considering actually gluing them down onto a piece of solid styrene sheet as well. So looks like a concrete base under them. This is only a thin piece here we've got. This is the 010. So they'll be parallel like such. Feeds coming in, feed out to a single pipe which runs to the tank anyway. Okay, the next thing to do onto the side of the tanks is to actually cut out some of these S-bends here from the kit, and actually shorten one of the tops there, so that it resembles more like in my diagram here where it comes out and runs back. Now, I have measured the S-bends on the sprue, and they are sufficient enough to come down here and flex back or bend back towards towards the discharge pipe. So I won't have to add any flanges in here. We'll have the flange on the tank itself, which is already there, and a flange on the bottom which will run back. On the bench here, I've got 2 more elbows, 4 flanges and a T-piece. Now once these are together, that'll determine how far apart the tanks are. So if I close that in, you can see that the pumping tanks are around about 1.5 inches apart. So that'll be sufficient. And then off the T-piece there will be the pipe which will, head over towards the main tank. Anyway, I'll get these parts glued up. I'll get the valves on and the S-bends, and we'll go from there. Okay, here we are with the pumps that I made up last time. And to connect these pumps together, I'm going to need an elbow, a straight section, a T-piece, and maybe a small section of pipe which runs off to the main discharge pipe. Now I'm thinking about omitting that section there and putting in another ball valve, similar to what's on the back of these. Once I've arranged all this and glued it to the pumps themselves, I need to find out how far from the main tank this will sit, because I will be using one of these up and over sections of pipe to go over the bund itself. Now for the bund, I've taken this cardboard here. It's 3mm grey board, 150mm long, 130 down the sides. Glued it together with a bit of CA and ran a bit of CA across the top and down the front edges here, and that'll stop it from turning or going fluffy if I need to just run the sanding stick over the top of it, and that'll be painted and glued into position. But look, I'll get these pieces here connected, joined together, and then we'll go out to the layout. I'll go out to the layout, I should say, and work out where exactly it needs to go. And hopefully the next scene will be on the layout itself. Let's carry on. Okay, we're back out here on the layout, and you can see where I'm going to place the tank and the bund and the pumps over here. Now the trick is we've got to get that pipe up over the bunding and then run it up the side of the tank to connect to the roof. That's going to be the interesting bit. Now I've already started cutting up some of that saddle section of pipe, and shortened it here, shortened it there, and it's got to be glued together. I'm going to show you a photo now. And once that's all glued together, hopefully my measurements are correct, and that'll fit between the coupling here and the tank itself and up to the roof. Let's see how we go with that. So we're back here on the layout now, and as you can see, I've put all this tank system together, put the front end onto it, and I've actually glued it down to a piece of thin styrene. Now these have also been painted. As you can see, the uprights are painted, the tanks are painted, and also the pipelines. I know this one's rolled over. I'll see if I can just flip it back over, and you can see that they've been painted as well. So my next stage here is to actually glue these pipes down, starting at the far corner to the left and working my way around the layout back towards where these pumps sit. I've already cut up the styrene, or I should say the saddle piece that'll go over the bunding there, and hopefully it's the right size. It's a bit of guesswork here. As you can see, the tank there has also been painted, hence why it's got this tape along the bottom here, because I do need to paint the ring around the outside here a grey colour, similar to the concrete that I've used under the pumps there. So that'll happen, and also inside around the tank itself, that'll be treated like concrete as well. So we'll go back into the other room now. We'll have a look at the other bits and pieces that I've cut up, and we'll also talk about the hose connections from the discharge pipe to the rail tankers. Let's go. Okay, so here we are on the workbench. As you can see, I've taken one of these saddle sections and I've actually shortened it down. So the low side here will go to the tank, the high side there will go back to the pumps themselves. I've also taken an elbow and the vertical feed pipe, which will run up to the top of the tank. Then it's just a matter of connecting the pipe across there into a, it's going to use this little bit off the tank into junction, you could say. Now look, one other thing I've been working on, I've taken some of these S-bends that we have on the sprue here. Now I've shortened them, I will shorten them down, but I've filed the end off. I'll show you a photo of this shortly. Don't know if you can see that, but I've actually filed the ends there so I can put some heat shrink tubing onto the end. Now the heat shrink tubing just simply fits on as such, and that'll become the flexible pipes to unload the tank cars. Now this will be cut here just below the elbow there, and they'll be secured to the outlets on the discharge pipe. Now for the opposite end, where they connect to the tank car, I've decided to use some of these smaller flanges or couplings here, and what I've done is taken some 2mm styrene rod and glued them onto the ends. Now that will slip down over the top, not a problem. So that'll run back and connect to the S-bend or the elbow. So that's where we're at. Also on the table here you can see a few other little items that I've knocked up, a couple of fire hose cabinets and a fire hose connection. This here will be the electrical conduit box, which will run between the two pump tanks, and I'll run a conduit out to each tank itself. So that's only tiny. I'll throw up a photo of them now for you to have a look at. So next up is to file this one down to match the other one here. Whoops. And cut them down, paint them white, add the hose, put the flanges on the end, and they're pretty much ready to go. And then once I super glue the other discharge pipe down to the layout, work out where I want to put the pumps exactly, and then I can use these sections here. Now I may need to shorten off either side there, off that side or that side, I don't know yet until everything's fixed in position. Alright, I'm going to get on with this now, and hopefully next you'll see these things here will be secured to the discharge pipe. They'll have some hose on the end, have the couplings in them, and maybe even have the bund permanently fitted down, and the tank, well, I don't know whether I'm going to have that permanently fitted or not. It's something that's quite close to the layout, so I'm going to have to make it removable somehow, so I'll look at that afterwards. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Let's get into it. So here we are out on the layout, and you probably noticed in the previous shot that I'd already painted the tank. Now the only bit that hasn't been painted is the feed pipe that goes to the top of the tank. That's because I had to measure out the full length of it and build the loop up over the top. Now, you can't quite see that, but here's a close-up photo. I've made the tank removable, so that feed pipe that runs up to the top actually comes out, and I can just lift it out up there and off the side there, put it down, and I can slide the tank out. That's so I can transport the layout or move the layout if I ever need to. Other things I've been working on, just to detail it, is the Armco barriers. So I've made a few up already, and this is the Ricks or the Pike Stuff kit. Now I know those legs are a little bit too large on that, but they'll be fitted down into the baseboard itself, into this bitumen surface here. So I'll probably just drill a few little holes and then patch it up with a bit of fibre paste, and just touch it up with a little bit of grey paint to match the rest of this bitumen surface. So that's where we're at. Now, I was considering putting a concrete area around the base of the tank here. I'll just move that block out of the way, and I'm going to move the camera in closer, and I'm going to show you what I'm about to do. Now, I spoke to you before about painting the base of the tank here a concrete colour, because it's still in the grey moulded plastic, and also maybe a concrete infill around the actual pathway there. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to take some evergreen styrene, this one here, it's 0.28mm by 2.84, number 8110, and I'm going to make up a circle which will fit around the base of the ring here, the pathway I should say. The reason for that is I'm going to actually paint the surface here with PVA, and I've got some really fine HO scale blue metal which I'll end up filling in this area here, so it looks completely different to the bitumen surface on the outside. So that's where we're up to. Now I probably won't show you that, but in the January update I will show you what's been finished on this section of the layout, which includes installation of the tanker truck loading rack, which may need to be shortened on one roof, because once I put the armcoes in around all this here and back along to the left there in front of the discharge pipe, it means that the tank itself will have to come forward to the edge of the layout. So I may have to chop off half an inch. I'm not totally convinced I have to yet, but we'll see. Now I'm just going to move the camera in closer to the pump section over here, because that's already been glued in place, and also give you a close-up of the fire hose reels and the fire hydrant there as well. So, well, as you can see there, you can see the two fire hose reel boxes and also the fire hydrant. Also in the center between the two tanks is the electrical cabinet, which I showed earlier, which was just plain white plastic or styrene previously. So you can see all the taps have been added to the top of the valves, so that's all pretty much finished up. And like I said, I've just got to paint that feed pipe that runs up to the top of the tank. That's where I'm at the moment, and some of those details I probably won't show you to the January update. So I'm looking mid-January to do an update there, with Christmas and New Year's and all that in between, and I've got a bit of overtime work to do. I'm not sure how much time I will actually get to spend on the layout. I will update you all on this in
Now I do apologise if the camera's a little bit shaky here, but I just want to show you the hoses before we finish off here. With those hoses, which I mentioned before about gluing the couplings onto a piece of 2mm styrene and lodging in one end of the hose, and then the elbow there in the foreground where it comes off the discharge pipe, I've actually inserted a piece of brass wire inside, and that allows me to flex the hoses, as you can see here. Just a little added interest to the hose itself, so it's not lying there dead straight. So all the hoses are like that, and what I'll do, I'll take an aerial photograph for you so you can see what it looks like from above.
Well folks, that's it. That's a wrap for 2022. I'd like to thank each and every one of my subscribers. There is over 1,000 a year that I've made this year, so I'd like to say thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you for the comments and the likes, and I hope you will join me in 2023. Between now and 2023, have yourself a Merry Christmas and the best of a new year. May 2023 be better than the previous years we've just had, and may you continue on with your great modelling. Well, until next time, you know what I'm going to say next. Take care, stay safe, and keep on modelling. Cheers, Gary.